Hello and welcome back to Economics on the Side. My name is James and today we're going to be discussing another episode of Stupid Economics, particularly the very expensive tyre fiasco in the US between 2009 and 2011. Now what was this? This was where Americans decided to tax imports on cheap Chinese tyres to protect American jobs. Very sound theory, but what happened in reality? So when you tax an outside import, it's known as a tariff. And a tariff is essentially a tax on your own consumers purchasing produce from other countries. You're not taxing those other countries, you're taxing your consumers from buying products made in those countries. So for example, if tyres are made in China and brought to the US imposes a tariff which makes those tyres more expensive, which then means that US tyres in general are more expensive because the consumers don't have access to those cheap imported tyres, which means that consumers have to pay more. Now that is the actual effect of a tariff, is that consumers in the country with the tariff pay more because there's no outside competition reducing prices on these goods. So what happened? This tariff on Chinese tyres, only Chinese tyres, saved 1,200 jobs in the US economy with tyre manufacturers because they were protected from this competition. Now, on the other side of this, the tariffs, firstly, they only impacted China. They didn't impact other low-cost tyre producers. So there were many other producers still flooding the market with cheap tyres. So they didn't completely revolutionize, they didn't completely protect the US market because there were other tyres still coming in. They just stopped the immediate influx of Chinese cheap tyres. Now, this costed consumers an extra $1.1 billion because they had to pay more for their tyres than they would have if they accepted these cheap produced tyres from China. So this cost actually led to even more job losses elsewhere in the economy, because if consumers have to spend 1.1 billion extra on tyres, that's 1.1 billion extra they're not spending somewhere else, and hence creating other jobs in the economy by increasing demand for other goods and services. So these jobs saved have actually led to likely more jobs lost elsewhere. In addition to that, all of the jobs saved were actually eventually lost because the tariff then ended and obviously the industry in the US did not catch up. These tyre manufacturers had no possible way to reduce the cost to what the Chinese were producing these tyres for. They had no way of catching up, so this tariff didn't even make any sense. There was no expectation for them to have managed to catch up and ramp up production to then outcompete the Chinese on these tyres. So when they took away these tariffs, all the Chinese tyres came flooding back in, prices on tyres dropped, and US manufacturers just couldn't compete again. So they just completely lost out, and all they did was prolong this just inevitable decline of this industry and costed consumers of tyres in the US a significant amount. And in fact, instead of placing this tariff on US consumers, they could have just paid each of those people who lost their jobs in this tyre manufacturing fiasco $900,000, and they would have broken even. It would have the exact same result, apart from people would have probably been a lot happier to be made redundant from their job and be given almost $1 million to walk away, rather than to keep their job for an extra 3 or 4 years and then to lose their job anyway. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and let me know what you want to see next. Thank you. Bye-bye.